Ukrainian officials are urging former U.S. President Donald Trump, now the Republican presidential nominee, to clarify his stance on Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. As the conflict grinds through its fourth year, Kyiv is increasingly concerned that Trump's ambiguous comments on Moscow could undermine Western unity at a critical stage. In recent days, Ukrainian leaders have publicly and privately pressed Trump to make his position unmistakable. While they acknowledge his potential return to the White House could reshape U.S. foreign policy, they argue that his mixed statements on Russia create uncertainty that plays into Moscow's hands. "We respect the democratic process in the United States," Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said during a press conference in Kyiv, "but this is not the time for vagueness. Ukraine, Europe, and indeed the world need to know where Mr. Trump stands. It is time for a clear position on Russia's aggression." Officials in Kyiv point out that Trump has alternated between calling for peace talks and suggesting he could end the war in 24 hours, without detailing what that would mean for Ukraine's sovereignty or territorial integrity. That ambiguity, they argue, risks signaling to Moscow that Western resolve might fracture. The timing of Ukraine's appeal is not accidental. Fighting has intensified along the eastern and southern fronts, with Ukrainian forces pushing to hold defensive lines amid relentless Russian assaults. At the same time, Kyiv continues to depend heavily on U.S. security assistance, including advanced air defense systems and long-range precision weapons. For Ukraine, bipartisan American support has been a cornerstone of survival. While the Biden administration has maintained strong backing, Kyiv fears that Trump's return could reshape commitments, especially if he prioritizes U.S.-Russia negotiations over Ukraine's war aims. "Our soldiers are not fighting only for Ukraine," said Oleksiy Danilov, Secretary of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council. "They are fighting for the security of Europe. If Washington sends mixed signals, it only strengthens the Kremlin's belief that it can wait us out." Trump has long faced questions about his approach to Russia. During his first term, he often praised Russian President Vladimir Putin's leadership style, even as his administration imposed sanctions on Moscow. Since leaving office, he has criticized the scale of U.S. military aid to Ukraine, arguing that allies in Europe should bear more of the burden. At campaign rallies, Trump has vowed to end the war quickly, but has avoided saying whether that would involve pressuring Kyiv to accept territorial concessions. His advisors insist he seeks peace through strength, but the lack of detail leaves allies guessing. Republican lawmakers remain divided. Some echo Trump's calls for restraint in U.S. spending, while others stress the importance of deterring Russian aggression. That division makes Trump's personal position all the more consequential. European capitals are watching closely. NATO allies, particularly Poland and the Baltic states, have consistently warned that any softening of U.S. support could embolden Russia. German and French officials, meanwhile, have signaled that transatlantic unity is essential if Ukraine is to withstand the war's next phase. Europe cannot replace the United States in terms of military aid, one senior European diplomat said. If Trump does not take a firm stance, it will introduce doubt into the alliance. That is exactly what Moscow hopes for. For Russia, Trump's ambiguity is an opportunity. Russian officials have publicly dismissed his comments, but privately suggested that a shift in U.S. policy could open space for negotiations more favorable to Moscow. Kremlin-linked media outlets frequently highlight Trump's criticisms of U.S. aid to Ukraine, portraying them as evidence of weakening Western resolve. Analysts say Moscow is betting on time. If the U.S. election creates uncertainty in Kyiv's support pipeline, Russia could intensify pressure on the battlefield, hoping to erode Ukraine's ability to resist. For now, Kyiv continues to rely on its Western partners while bracing for a hard winter of combat. Ukrainian officials stress that their appeal to Trump is not partisan, but pragmatic. Whoever leads the United States, they say, must recognize that Russia's invasion is not just a regional dispute, but a direct challenge to international order. Neutrality is not an option when one country seeks to erase another, Kuleba said. Clarity from Washington is essential because it sends a message to Moscow that aggression will not be rewarded. As the U.S. election campaign accelerates, Ukraine's demand for Trump to take a clear position underscores how deeply American politics now intersect with the battlefield in Eastern Europe. For Kyiv, the question is not only about what happens in November, but whether Western unity can hold until then.